Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it at JBirdFit. Today, I have a very special guest for you, Donny Mallin, co-founder of Crucible Fitness and a former NCAA athlete turned passionate fitness coach. Donny blends over a decade of fitness expertise with a deep commitment to holistic well-being, extending beyond physical training to encompass mental and spiritual growth. Donny continues to evolve his approach, currently pursuing a CSCS certification to further his impact. Donny Mallin, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you, Jason, man. Pleasure to be here. It was great to meet you and really meet even all those guys within a couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll get to that in the story, but it's so cool to meet people that there was no awkward moment. Like I felt like I've known you for 5-10 years. Like immediately, like I get your sense of humor. It was just so easy. It feels like we were old friends picking up. So it's so cool. And I think that's like what Crucible fosters, that kind of environment. So that plus you just being who you are, I think it was cool. It was really cool to hang out with you for a couple of days there. So now we're here, man. This is cool.
No, I had a lot of fun, and it's just really interesting to be able to get an insider look at what you guys are creating with the Crucible Man and Crucible Fitness, and just how you guys, even though you haven't really known each other for that long of a time, just the cohesion that was almost immediate in what you're doing, why you're doing it, the purpose behind it, the fact that it's faith-based. And those are the things that really interested me the most, because you have a mission, you have a vision, you have a goal, you have a dream, you have a desire, and everybody has bought into this. And so you're really pouring your hearts into everything that you're doing every step of the way. And when it comes to teamwork, it's just that acknowledgement that, yeah, I have my role, you have your role, and sometimes those roles overlap. And so we really got to come together and make sure that we're in the same space at the same time, making things happen. We're driving things forward. And that's something that you guys have done so well in the short time that you've been together. And it gets me excited for what you're going to create next. And every time I see one of the ads pop up on Instagram, I'm like, yes. I'm just like, get it. Cause you guys are doing it, man. You're putting it together and it's happening. So it's really cool to see that come to fruition.
I appreciate that, brother. Appreciate it. I can't say that or take credit for what was established. So the guys, Nathan and the guys down there, they were pretty much up and running for about 7-8 weeks or so, I would say. Crucible Man's been around longer than that. Right. We decided to launch the Crucible Fitness side. But to your point, like walking into that environment, I mean, it's like you've never been a part of a team like that. Like everybody's complete and true love and respect for everybody on the team. When we have to come together and perform a task, man, this is something I'm not used to. Coming from the corporate government world, just always being career-based, it was like, man, this is something, man. You can really do some special thing with that many heads in the same room. I'll focus on the same mission. I was like, man, this is great. No, I appreciate the kind words, man. Always appreciate your support too. Always awesome. Sharing stuff and getting it out there.
Yeah, for sure. Donny, could you start us off by sharing a bit about your transition from law enforcement into being the Crucible Fitness coach? How did that happen?
Sure. Let's see. Where do I even begin with this? So I always, even as a young kid, I think I was telling you a little bit about this, always drawn to being law enforcement or whatever level that might be, county, state, federal, wherever it was. Always into the protection, and just I always respected it. Every time I'd see a police officer or a police cruiser, I'd be like, man, I'd be so cool to be able to serve the community that way. So I was always drawn to it. So I'm born and raised in Erie, PA. I went to Gannon University, majored in criminal justice with the intention of earning the degree, likely becoming an officer. Again, on any level, I was applying all over the place. I ended up going to the police academy at Mercier's Northeast, which is just outside of Erie, PA. So I got the Act 120 certification for Pennsylvania for the county. And during that time, I was working 2 part-time jobs. I was at a state parole violator center, and that was like 20 hours a week. And then I was doing campus police officer work. So I was actually a sworn in officer technically for campus police at LECOM. So Lake Erie Osteopathic Medicine School. So it was glorified security work, right? It was nothing, I can't claim law enforcement. So I wouldn't even say I really had a law enforcement career, because that was the extent of it. And the way it ended was, all right, I was working 40 hours a week total, second shift into third. I was like crushing myself to meet the hours for the week and just get by. And at the time, one of my professors reached out from Gannon. He's a former retired special agent in the FBI. And he said, "Hey, I'm doing some government contract work. There's a few analyst positions opening up. You should think about applying." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, sure. Normal work, first day, like daylight shift. I'll take it. That's a lot more than I'm making now. This is great."
Yeah.
So I go through the like top secret security clearance process. That takes roughly 6 to 8 months or so to get through. So I had to be patient. So I kept working during that time, hoping, expecting to get it, but you never know what could happen. So I go through the clearance process. Then I get hired as a material analyst, but we worked in an underground mine right like about 40 minutes from where I live now. So a very secure facility, really cool for the first 10 minutes. And then after you work underground for a year, it's I don't know about this as much.
Right.
So I did that. So always in this whole time, just to have this make sense how I'm into fitness now, came from athletics. I was always literally athletics was my outlet from 4 years old through college. I played football at Gannon through college, loved it, loved everything about it. I like to think a lot of my values come from a lot of the coaches and mentors that I had in addition to my parents growing up. Like always could vent, always could release frustration, everything, anything you can think of. So always had a strong background with strength and conditioning and just an interest overall in fitness and health and wellness. So that was always my side hobby in addition to the full-time employment. So that's just to give everybody an idea of how it didn't come out of nowhere. I always loved it. So that was my true passion. So I did the government contract. I was in the government contract space for roughly 9 years. So during that time, I went from an analyst to being a background investigator where I was actually interviewing people for employment suitability for their clearances. And then I joined the feds about a year ago and recently just left them about a month ago with DCSA. So all this time, I'm like, man, I really want to get to the federal level because the government contract space financially was a pretty good move. It just wasn't as secure and stable. Companies are always buying each other out and different things like that. So I wanted a little bit more security. And I was caught up in the status of the whole Fed employee thing. If I'm being honest, I'd be like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to be a Fed. I want to do that, get the benefits and stuff. So I went and did that. And throughout the whole time, yes, was I performing well? I would say so. I think I was performing okay, but was my heart in it? No. So as I matured, I've gone like through the career path a little bit, different positions. I found myself always seeking the next position or promotion. Like I was looking to fulfill myself somehow. Like I knew inside, man, I'm just not stimulated enough. I'm just not, I don't feel fulfilled what I'm doing. What is going on? Like maybe it's another position, maybe it's a different company. So I played that whole game seriously for the whole time. I was on the
Yeah.
government contracts for 8, 9 years up until
Uh,
this move right before I met you. And I launched my remote coaching fitness business at the time about 2 years ago. That was called Actilete. And it was good. It was a great little side hustle for me. I was able to do what I love, work with people all over the states. It doesn't matter because it was all remote. And for the first time, I was like, oh, that fire's back. I feel energized. Like I'm excited to do that. And then I'm like, man, I really want to grow this, see where it can go. And prayed on it, reflected, organically just worked out to be connected with Nathan on Instagram is how we met. Initially, he was trying to get me to become a part of Crucible Man. And I did. So I joined. And during that time, it was Thursday nights they do the calls. And basically it was about, why don't you like leave the job you hate, basically. Right? So it was basically waking you up to do something that you want to was going to fulfill you, you have a passion for, and like you're very motivated by. And I took it serious. I'm like, man, you know what? I'm going to send him a video. And I think I told you this story last time I saw you, but I recorded a 2 minute. I know I did because I showed you Loom. So I recorded a 2 minute Loom. I'm like, hey, he could either shoot this thing down. Maybe it's not the right time. I wasn't really expecting a response. And then I sent it and he loved it. So then here we go. I'm like, okay, this could be something. Like, what do we do here? So we work out this joint venture. We end up FaceTime and collaborating quite a bit of how it could look. I end up rebranding my company Actilete. So to Crucible Fitness. And then about a month, not even a few weeks into that, I had put my notice in with the government. I'm like, all right, I'm all in. Let's go. And truly, it's surreal, man. I can't believe I'm even sitting here saying that right now. If I could talk to my old self 6 months ago, this wouldn't even be, it'd be two different people. And throughout the whole time, throughout the process of like how I ended up coming to that mindset, I started to dive hard into faith, man. When I was, so as an employee, I was like, man, I'm just not fulfilled. Something's not there. Marriage was good. I felt like my marriage was solid. Relationships were good, but that piece was missing. It was definitely a spiritual piece. What that did for me was help me like slow down, take a look, breathe a little bit, and then it just started opening doors. Like I grew exponentially in all facets of my life. Meeting people like you, for example, like people like you would have never been in my life prior to my relationship, building my relationship with God. And I truly believe that.
Yeah.
And like these are things I would have avoided before, like the whole live stream, or I want to play it safe. I'm okay. And now we're here. Now we're doing Crucible Fitness, and we joined the entrepreneurial space, man. So
That we did.
yeah, it's been a interesting last couple months, that's for sure. But yeah, so that's like the cliff notes about it, where the background has always been, and my interest in fitness overall, but then how I ended up here, and now we're going for it, brother. So
Yeah, I think it's really cool that your willingness to bet on yourself, I think,
mm,
is really something that is unique. Got to the place, and I'm assuming through faith, you got to this place where you were like, you know what? I need to do something different. I need to make a change. I need to show up differently. It's again, like you said, it's not that I am completely unhappy in what I'm doing, but it's not as satisfying. And you're always looking for that next thing. And it's because there's that feeling inside of you that was growing, that you was always there, that burning desire, that need to do
mm,
something different, to be of service.
for sure.
And you had to figure out, what are the next steps? What am I going to do? I enjoy this one thing. This is really what's important to me. I know that I can grow this. And then through that process, you end up meeting Nathan. I think it's really admirable that you had this desire to serve, and this also this core belief about yourself that there was something greater that you wanted to accomplish in your life, and you started making your way towards that goal, towards accomplishing these things. You started taking the small steps to get to that big leap, which ended up being connecting with Nathan. And you, again, you bet on yourself again by sending that loom. You don't know what's going to happen. And by chance, he's, no, actually, that sounds really good. Let's see what we can do. Let's collaborate and see what
Mhm.
we can build together. And now you're in the middle of that process. And I love that you said that it was really your faith, that without that, it wouldn't have led you to this place that you are now. Because for me, it's the same thing. I wouldn't have been able to connect with you guys if I hadn't started that journey of faith late last year. And I made the commitment to myself that I was going to read the Bible in 1 year. So I got a 365 Bible that I'm going through currently, which resulted in me buying 3 other Bibles that I'm also currently going through as I'm reading, because
Love it.
you get to this place where you're like, okay, this makes sense. And I get it. That's the King James version. But then there's the ESV and then the NLT. And now you're
Yes.
going through and trying to piece all these things together, because I don't fully understand this. I want a better
Right.
understanding. I don't like the translation over here because of the words that are being used and the things that they switched it to. It really completely changes the meaning.
Right.
And this isn't Bible study, guys, so hang tight with me
It's,
for a second.
you got
But
it.
what I noticed in going through that is, as I was going through the King James version and I'm reading it, all these things started popping up for me. I'm like, where's this coming from? What's happening? It's like a little flame or something burning inside of you. I don't know any other way to explain it other than it just starts coming out. And maybe it's because I've done so much personal development work in my life, reading all these books behind me. And, now all of that is just coming together and culminating in this one moment of, this is like a piece of it. The Bible, the ultimate personal development book on the face of the planet, that's
Right.
allowing me to write all this stuff out in a cohesive manner. And now I'm at the place, do I create content on it? Because I have 2 notebooks. Yeah, just like this, 2 full notebooks of stuff that's come out for me that I could very quickly start making
Awesome.
content on. But once you do and you open that door, there's all sorts of other things that get invited in that process. And it's not being a theologian or a pastor or anything. It's just, do I go down that road, or do I just keep that to myself and continue moving on the path? That's always
Mm.
the question.
Hey, something I could collaborate with you on, brother.
I
I
would love
want
to do that.
Hey, I'm not joking. I got some notes too, because our journey, now that you say that, our faith journey is very similar, because I grew up, and everybody, this is not a, like he said, Bible study, but I grew up
Yeah,
Catholic. It's just going. I grew up Catholic, and I don't know if we got into that. That's, my parents are Catholic. I'm now practicing Christianity. I'm more into the relational side. Reading the Bible really wasn't a thing when I was going through Holy Communion and confirmation and everything. Ever since that happened, you hit the nail on the head. It is like a little flame inside of you that it just gets bigger and bigger. And it's just this, I don't know, energy of like life and
Yeah.
joy and love. It's beautiful things. But yeah, no, to your point, that's exactly it. That was the turning point. It opened up my mindset just to see the good, see the opportunity, and have that faith over fear mindset. So it was totally, I attribute a lot of that to it. Definitely.
The other thing that's very similar about us is we both fairly recently stopped drinking. For
Yep.
me, it's been about a year and a half, and I
Same.
think that's played a major role in this.
Yeah.
It's not that I had a poor relationship with it to begin with, but there were definitely reasons. You know how it is. You spend this time, your 20s and early 30s, that you're like in this pattern. And throughout that pattern, it's just okay. On Thursdays, we go to the bar, we do a little karaoke, we have a couple drinks, whatever. We connect with our friends and blow off
Yeah.
some steam. And then that becomes the pattern. And then eventually you find that now, when I'm stressed, when I'm frustrated, when I'm irritated, when I'm sad, when I'm lonely, when I'm depressed, that then becomes this crutch or
Yeah.
coping mechanism or whatever it is that you want to call it, that you're using it for yourself,
Yep.
and it's unhelpful. And then you start to feel bad. And it's,
Yeah.
you get to that place where it's, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And for me, it
Right.
was just like one day I'm like, you know what? I'm done. That's it. And that's why I don't claim sobriety or anything like that, because I don't know in the future, will I go on a vacation to Mexico and have a couple foo drinks? That's
Sure.
certainly a possibility. But for
Right.
now, what I've been able to create through not drinking has been
That's
everything that you see here. And if I can do that while focusing on all of this, then why not keep going down that path?
exactly.
You
Exactly.
know?
I very so our timelines are almost identical. Year and a half. So New Year's Eve 2022 would have been my last drop alcohol. And it was the same type of moment. There wasn't anything, I wouldn't say it was like a crisis that happened that made me stop, but
Right.
it just, like you said, I was leaning on it on the weekends to vent that frustration or what, like a reward for working 40 hours a week. It's what are you doing, man? That's, I
You
don't get it.
made
Just
it, buddy.
did it, buddy. Here's a, six pack and then eight. It doesn't stop. So like I was never an everyday drinker, but my weekends were built around social drinking. And it's, man, that's, there's got to be more to life out there. So I can't ever, I can't, I don't claim the 12 steps or anything either. I never did that. Fortunately, I was able to just cut it cold turkey and I don't miss it at all
Right.
because the whole like trust in yourself concept did not start to happen for me until alcohol stopped. And then couple that with the faith piece, that's when you want to talk about clarity. You're diving into scripture, plus you have a clear mind, alcohol free. It's, oh man, this is a recipe for success right here. So that starts to compound day to day. And it's, man, now we're here. Now we're talking here. Like we're doing this. Like this never would have happened with that. So yeah, it's so cool. So
Another
cool.
thing that's interesting is I've had several clients now that have come to me for one-on-one coaching. They too have started reading the Bible. They come from traumatic backgrounds. They're the quintessential nice guy. That's what they identify with, which
Mhm.
ultimately insecure attachment style. We're not going to dive into attachment styles here, guys, but just an acknowledgement that's what's going on in the background and what they're feeling. So there's a higher level of insecurity, there's
Absolutely.
fear, there's anxiety, there's frustration, and when they started leaning into reading the Bible and taking the time with it and sitting with it and then acknowledging it, taking notes on it, and then trying to understand their own mind through that process, what they found is they have a greater sense of peace. They have less anxiety. They feel more competent. They feel more confident in who they are. And they feel more capable in making decisions
Mhm.
as opposed to seeking everybody else's opinion about where they're going, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. They've now
Yeah.
stepped into their masculine frame, which is authenticity. It's who they really are. It's such an amazing thing to see the look on their eyes when they're making all of those connections in our one on one sessions,
Beautiful.
because they start to sit up a little bit straighter and they're talking more directly into the camera. And it's just like, yes, that right there is it. That's you.
That is it.
And you've now met yourself. And so that's been one of the benefits that sitting down and taking that walk of faith has given people. And I just think it's an amazing testimony.
I love what you just said about finally like knowing yourself because
Yeah.
that's a very great descriptive language of what it feels like because you're seeking all the answers for all these answers in the wrong places, right? Until you dive into something so sound like that, then it's, oh, okay, I get it. Now it's starting to make sense. Thank you, God. And then it's just
Right.
all. kinds of comes into play. But that's, and just going along with that, when someone like looking at the Bible as a whole, like some people say, man, it's just such a big book. Like, where do I start? What do I do? I'm like, just take 5 minutes to start your day and finish. Instead of scrolling on your phone, looking for that quick dopamine hit, open up a Bible, do that. You're going to feel a lot different starting your day and in your day that way. So that's always an easy approach.
Absolutely. So my day actually starts with the Sarah Young devotional. Yeah, Jesus Calling. And there's several different versions of that they created over time. But it's so interesting because you get a little blurb that she writes out and then some scripture underneath of that to go along with it. So I'm doing things twofold where I'm doing that because it's a little more it's easy to digest and get through, and it gets you thinking early in the morning as I make my keto coffee and put the coconut oil and all this stuff
Oh, brother.
and blend it in. Yeah, oof, I love it. It's so good.
That's awesome.
But again, it's that journaling process, and I think journaling is such an important piece to all of this. Like, even if
Yes,
you're not going through scripture, if you can get to a place where you're willing to start putting things down on paper, right? You're angry, you're frustrated, whatever the thought, feeling, or emotion is that you're going through. If you can start getting that down and authoring your story, you begin to figure out all the different places and patterns in your life where you struggle or where you're stuck.
yeah,
And then as time goes on, if you can just stay away from technology for a little bit, stay away from some of the things that you're obsessing about on social media, to include all the things that you probably shouldn't be watching on social media. We won't get into that. You can go listen to episode 71 with Dr. Robert Glover, where we cover all that information on No More Mr. Nice Guy. But you, again, you get to this place where you start to manage your mind, and I think that's where so many men struggle today. Is everybody's claiming some sort of mental health issue or problem or depression or anger, rage, whatever it is that they're experiencing, but they've never taken the time to actually challenge those thoughts.
I agree with that. And even faith component for sure, journaling, even outside of that, from just a self-development and discipline standpoint, like writing pen to paper, there's something about it where there's just that mental connection, and you can finally take that deep breath and self-reflect. And it just removes you from everything worldly for a minute, and you're in your own space and you can actually think clearly. Like there, until I started journaling, that's how I started my journey. Two buddies and I, we read the same scripture chapter each day, and we send each other a screenshot of it, of like our journal, whatever. Just to, accountability is one part of that, but two is just to show, wow, there's brothers doing this too. You're not
Right.
alone. Like, wow, he took the same thing I did from that scripture, or wow, I didn't think of that perspective. You mentioned the different versions. Wow, I never would have thought about that, or to apply that to my life in that manner. So it's just, I love I'm a data nerd by heart. I really am. I love numbers and everything, but having like that personal diary journal to look, if you have to look back, you can, but how it helps you progress. Yeah, maybe like millimeters at a time, but it's still progression every day, which is, I think, such a, I love small compounding discussions like that. James Clear, Atomic Habits. I'm sure you've read it.
Mhm.
It's just one of those things that just leads to greatness. So yeah, love it.
What are some other things that you're doing in your life right now that have just, like journaling, have impacted you or helped you move along in your growth and personal development?
Really, it's making a non-negotiable time to do that. I think not even necessarily if I'm journaling, like the meditation piece for me, I was always very fast-paced moving. Any white space on my calendar that I saw, I had to be that productive time, right? When if I wasn't accomplishing a task, I almost had this. I, I just listened to something this morning. It was almost like a self-sabotage of, oh, I'm not being productive today because I don't have a tangible outcome that I can see. But separating that time and understanding, like, okay, there's a lot of growth happening, even though it's intangible in this moment. So that's something, like, in addition to the journaling, just blocking out time. And that it's something, I'm not saying get crazy with your calendar and block it out, but me visually seeing it, I get so specific with it that I'm blocking out 2 hours a day for family time. I'm not taking any sales calls. I'm not messaging clients. Phone goes away, because what helped me with that is I was present with my kids, but I wasn't, right? Physically there, mentally tapped. And I think a lot of guys can relate to that. And I think we even talked about that a little bit last time, but separating that time out, making it non-negotiable, just to into whatever that might be. Is that task toward a side hustle you're looking to do? Okay, do an hour a day, commit to that. And for me, it was slowing down because I'm a very fast-paced minded person, and just breathing, like literally just breathing and soaking in life, formulating some thoughts. So that's a broad answer, but that's basically what I've been doing. I've just been blocking out my schedule for certain areas that, and just doing that reflection of how can I be a better husband? in this category, or reflect on the day. How can I have handled that situation differently? Still giving myself grace, but then teaching moment at the same time. Okay, here's how you can approach that going forward. So I was never doing that. So I was always starting my day 4 a.m., finishing 9, 10 p.m. without any decompression time. So
Yeah.
you can imagine, talk about compounding over time, the stress. And then you do that Monday through Friday. Okay, if alcohol is still in the picture, it sounds pretty good at that point on Saturday without taking that time. Yeah, separating the time, giving yourself the time to do it.
Now, you also have ADHD, don't you?
Totally.
Yeah.
I never officially diagnosed. Never really went down that road, but I'll tell you what, man, you can probably tell I can like barely sit still right now. And in the classroom, they lost me, man. I just wasn't like, I knew what I had to do to stay eligible to play sports. So that again, leaning back on athletics, it really did keep me accountable in the classroom. And even then, sadly, I was just doing what I needed to do to get a C plus. So I'm not on here claiming to be this scholar. I just wasn't interested. And when I
Right.
would find things that I'm interested in, I could lock in on it for 12 hours. So it was one of those things. Do I have it, or am I just not doing the right things? Is it what's going on here? So yeah, school was a struggle just from that. I just couldn't sit still, man. I just wanted to be active and do things. But yeah, do you
Yeah.
have it?
Our story is so similar. So, like you, I haven't been diagnosed, but all my therapist friends are like, "Yeah, you've got it, man." Like, and I look back to being younger and in school and stuff like that, and I was just I was not present. I was not there. I was in a different place, and my
Yeah.
leg is constantly going, and I'm just like, I can't focus, and I don't know what you're telling me, and I'm not fully understanding this. What that ultimately led to for me was struggling in school, being kind of average, a little below average in terms of
Mhm.
grades, and then not going to college until much later in life. For me, going to college, I would have been 33 when I started.
Oh, really?
And yeah, I was a chef for 15 years. And when 2008 hit and the economy tanked, I had a choice to make. And it was, you know what? I'm going to go to a junior college and start working towards my bachelor's degree. Don't know what's going to happen. I'll give it a shot, see what's going to happen with it, and transition into criminal justice. And so that's what I did. And I had lost my job and had been on unemployment and took a job for 30,000 less a year as a chef during that time period, and Crimea River, all the stuff. But this is funny anecdotal here. In order to get the next job from the job that I had lost, I had to take a test. And it's much like a mystery basket, like you see on all the different chef TV shows and stuff like that. So I go in, the executive chef is there, corporate executive chef. He's like, "Hey, here's your mystery basket. You have 2 hours, 4 course meal, put it up and call me when you're done." Great,
Wow.
fine. Did that. Did not get the job. Somebody else gets the job, but I look in Craigslist a couple weeks later and they're looking for a sous chef. Call the corporate executive chef up again. "Hey man, see that you still have a job opening. I need a job. You should probably hire me for that." And he's like, "You're going to have to test for the new chef." Fine. So I go in and I test for the new chef, make him a 4 course meal. "Here you go. Put it up. You're hired." Great. 3 months into that, "Hey, we're going to have to let you go." And I'm
Hmm.
just like, "You've got to be kidding me." At the time, I'm working for the University of Chicago, and this is where all this kind of ends
Ah,
up coming full circle, right? So I'm
okay.
working for the University of Chicago. I get released from that job, but then I have to test for another job within the same company. And this is for a law firm. And this time I'm the younger candidate. I go in, I blow it out of the water, do a great job. I get the job, spend the next almost 2 years in that role, going to school full time
Mm,
online as I'm doing all of that. And
wow.
then it wouldn't be until another 6 years later, after I get my bachelor's degree and get into law enforcement and start doing the job, that I go for my master's. And where do I get my master's at? The University of Chicago. I tell that story for people to understand that no matter where you're at in life, no matter what you're struggling with, there is an out, but you
Cool.
have to be the one to make the decisions that are going to put you in that place to be able to attain whatever goals that you're aspiring towards.
I
And
love that.
that's on you. It starts with you. Nobody else is going to do it for you. There's no magical unicorn that's going to drop out of the sky and hand you this pot of gold and you're going to be like, "Oh, this is amazing. Thank you so much." No, it's hard work. It's a lot of
Yeah.
effort. In order for me to go to school, I had to get my bachelor's degree. I had to go to a junior college. From that junior college, I had to go to a state school. When I went to the state school, it was 100 miles or more from where I was living in Chicago. So now I'm moving. but I need to get a job down there. What job can I get? I've been a chef for 15 years, so I need a chef job. Went into one of the top places in the area, said, "Hey, I need a job." Tested for them again, get the job. Now I'm able to go to school and get my bachelor's degree. So there's all these little steps over time that I had to take that ultimately built the momentum to get me to where I am now. And I'm so
Mm,
appreciative of having been able to go through that, because what happened when I was younger left me emotionally immature as an adult.
sure.
And then going to school and doing all these other things and being introduced to the things. I'm in rooms that I shouldn't be in. I'm doing things that, aren't for me. I'm doing all the things that I've told myself my entire life I'm not worthy of having,
Sure.
and that I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable. You can't
Yeah.
do this. This isn't for you. Money doesn't grow on trees. How are you going to pay for this? Why are you going to school? This is a waste of your time. These are
Mm,
things that people are telling me as I'm going through this process. And I
mm,
had to sit back and say, you know what? No, actually, I can do this. I am going to do this. I recognize it costs money, but there's going to be an end benefit to this when I'm
love it.
done, because I'm going to be able to grow. I'm going to expand, develop, and I'm going to become the person that I was always meant to be. And that's how this podcast starts, right? To throw out
Yeah.
the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. That's where this came from. And so I
Love
tell people, if you're struggling, if you're going through it, you have to be the one to get yourself to that next level.
it. Mhm.
Nobody else is going to do it for you. And if you
Right.
have a dream, if you have a mission, if you have a vision, get locked into it and get it figured out. It is for you. You can have it.
I love it. I love that.
Sorry,
And
that
and
that was a little
and no,
much.
no, that was you get now I'm sweating over here. That was amazing. So something common theme like among your story is you were taking action the whole time. There was
Yeah.
always like it wasn't just playing that victim or even having that scarcity mindset of oh I don't think I can because I know I can. I'm going to trust myself. I'm betting on myself here, right?
Well,
You
I
you
lived in that state of mind till I was 33. And it wasn't
yeah
until I was 33 that I was prepared to say, you know what? I'm
yeah
not doing this anymore. I'm done.
I I was 32. I
Yeah.
am. It just happened. It just happened, and it's along with that too. You mentioned okay, yes, there's an end goal of like where we want to end up. I always wanted to end up serving people somehow, and now I get to do it with something I love. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff that you're going to have to do to get to that point. Like your part of your story, okay, maybe that wasn't the exact end game result, but it was still progress toward your final goal. So I always like to look back. I don't regret any part of my story. Right. I think it was all, if anything, preparing and preparation to perform now, almost giving it that callous effect of, no, I'm not going to let the little things hinder me from what my dream is, like what I'm meant to do. And then in those moments, there's still so much to learn, right? Like when I was a campus police officer or working part time, there was days where I didn't want anything to do with it. But if you can look at the glass half full in those moments, there's still stuff you're going to be able to take bits and pieces of and apply down the road. So there's never, I just don't feel like there's ever wasted time. If that makes sense, like it's not something that like just because you're not in that role or status that you're chasing. If or I was caught up in that, I was always caught up in status and title, but it's still progression toward a final goal. And being present in that mindset for me, I struggle with a long time, a very long time to understand, oh, maybe this is just meant to be this limbo period, whatever, still take action and go. But yeah, no, I love that story, man. I love that.
I love that you brought up status and title,
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything.
nothing.
Who are you impressing by doing the things that you're doing? What was it for you? Who are you trying to impress or to
Uh,
satisfy?
I would honestly, I was always trying to please my parents. If
Yeah.
that's honestly, I was, and they acknowledged that like my successes all along, but I always wanted to and it was more them and then really myself. It was like I'm trying to prove to myself that I can because I lacked a lot of that confidence and trust, but really wanted to make a lot of it for going to school, getting the job and everything. A lot of that was aligned toward pleasing my parents, which now I can look back on and understand that. And then to a certain point, now I'm like, okay, God, I need you. I need to reflect on what you want me to do as far as purpose goes. Now I'm trying to please him. So it's a complete shift of mindset and living out. But it was for a while up until a couple of years ago, really, it was what would my parents think? And it's interesting that I'm grateful for everything they did, but to have that carry so much weight in my thought process and actions, I was like, wow, man, maybe it's good to have that. I think it's good to have respect for your parents. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
but at the same time, could hinder you from doing what really you're meant to do. So it's yeah, I would say
Yeah.
that's where me.
I think for so many men out there, they end up losing themselves
Mm,
because they were born and bred to be a good little people pleaser, to be a good boy. And that's exactly what they've done their entire life. And you see this in the big complaints on social media in terms of dating and relationships and what's happening. There's this epidemic of nice guys out there or people pleasers.
definitely.
And it's because that's what you were born and bred to do and be.
Yep.
And you'll hit the point of being 30, 40, 50 years old. And you're like, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Yep.
How did I end up here? I haven't lived my life even close to one, what I'm capable of doing, and two, with what I actually want to be doing. It's like you have more gas in the tank, but you're afraid to let it out because
Yes.
what if I do this and I fail? So quintessential nice guy or people pleaser will carry a story in his head his entire life of all the things that he's capable of doing and what he's going to do and what's going to happen. And you live in the story and you might make some steps and gain some momentum in the direction. But then self sabotage always steps in
Mm,
to pull you back down to what you're used to, your emotional baseline, what you think
yes.
you're capable of having in your life. And until you're willing to go past that threshold, you're going to find that you will struggle and you will fail and you will flounder every step of the way until you start believing in yourself and recognizing that you have to take care of you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And then that translates into all these other things that will
Yes.
give you the growth that you actually desire and that you're capable of.
So true. It's so true. Just that whole thought of, man, like it's in your mind, like that. We talk about that burning desire, right? It's in there. Like trying to find, I always mention the wise counsel a lot when I talk about my whole journey and what I attribute a lot of, I would consider success and development and growth is because I finally got to the point where I knew I had all these feelings inside. It was a burning desire. And I'm like, "Eh, do I talk to people about this or do I just keep this to myself? Like, where do I go like with these feelings? And I'm sure you were raised similar, but it was handle your stuff, figure it out. We don't want to hear complaints or vulnerabilities being shared, really deal. And I just adopted that mentality up until really a few months, like within a year ago. And it's, oh, wait, I can share these things. And there's other guys that have similar stories talking to you already. It's okay. And now I can actually get help, get it, putting this into like an action. It's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But having to get to that point takes a lot of getting to know yourself first. You brought that up
Yeah.
earlier and developing. I wouldn't have had the confidence to even approach someone like you or Nathan or the guys or these guys. I have a lot of like spiritual mentors in my life right now, locally here, that I would have never been even in a discussion with if I was just keeping my head down and just trying to make something out of nothing. You know what I mean? It just doesn't add up. But yeah, it's once all that comes into alignment, it's amazing. And it's a beautiful thing. Like what can come out of that and sharing those vulnerabilities with people. It's amazing, man. Truly
I
amazing.
ag- I agree. How has your faith impacted your leadership role in your family?
It has changed everything. So my wife, I would give her the credit of being the spiritual leader prior to even she was the one that really brought me to a close relationship. So I have to give her credit when it comes to my faith journey. But now that like my son and daughter and my even my wife see me as making raising our family up in the kingdom, it's changed everything. Like it's man, I can't even put it into words. I'm almost more proud of living that like devout kind of life that way for our house than any accomplishment I've made outside. Like our kids know Jesus, know God, like they know everything. And it's just the values. I think to me, it's helped me become more present and intentional with my actions in my family. Like it's action with intent now and a purpose. Oh my gosh, I'm nourishing kids here. What
Yes.
value can I bring to them? And I don't know what the stat is. Don't quote me on this, but I think when the father is a spiritual leader in the home, I don't know if you've heard this stat or not. I think there's about an 80 to 85% success rate that the children will also follow in that faith journey. When it's vice versa, I think with the mother is usually, and that's the most common, I think it's about a 20% success rate. That's not a jab at anybody. I'm just saying, I think hearing that stat helped me too. Like I said, I'm a numbers guy, but I'm like, wow, I can see that impact, right? Like you're a model
Yeah.
without even saying anything. The eyes are on you. And that's something that having kids really helped me realize. Back to the alcohol discussion. I don't want them to see me not myself. That's ridiculous. Like I would never want them to see. that I guess that is a vulnerability, but it's just at the same time, it's just not, I'm not the right person in that right of mind, the frame of mind. So like faith has just helped me understand just the values, like the true intent of values for my house. It's beautiful.
No, I love that. And Ed Milet, he even says these things are caught, not taught.
Oof.
And yeah, it gets you right when you hear it because it's just there's you can go back and put yourself in the position that you were at 5 and 6 years old. You can see it from that perspective, or at least I have the capability to put myself in
Mhm.
that place. And it's almost like it was yesterday. And you can see these things that are going on and you catch everything and you don't recognize it at the time until you're much older. And you can go back now and use the language that you have as an adult now to identify what was going on in that moment in time in your life
Yeah.
and the various challenges that you had throughout childhood. And that's actually part of the reparenting process is being able to go back to those time periods in your life and make those identification of the patterns where you struggled the most. And that helps you then close the loop on those old circumstances that have kept you feeling stuck. That's really that walk of faith is that gift that you're giving to your children because you're showing up and you're showing them and they're catching these things from you. And so I can
Right.
see the impact of that down the road, what that might look like as they grow older.
Certainly. And then to that point too, we talked about mental and physical as well. I like that my children and spouse witness me taking care of myself. I don't do it to be vain or flaunt things on social media. I really don't. I do it because it makes me feel good. One, I think taking care of self is how you really you can be the best leader. But them, just like you said, it's caught. They witness, they eat the food we eat. We don't need to heat up mac and cheese and chicken nuggets because they see mom and dad eating properly and like getting the right sleep. And it's amazing how much communication occurs without any words being said. It's unbelievable. It was never in a perspective for me until I became a parent. But so if you think about trying to seek, find your purpose, find your why, or you need motivation, how about being a role model? Not even if you don't have kids, how about being a role model for peers? Like you can be the example, right? Like you could be the change agent for a whole group of people. So it's almost like a movement in itself, just being an example for people, helping people get there. That's where I'm at. And it's, man, it's amazing. Just walking the walk, I guess is how you'd say.
I agree. It's what's going to ultimately make you successful through Crucible Fitness and all the men's lives that you're working with and that you're going to touch throughout time with your sphere of influence because you've, again, put faith in yourself and you bet on yourself that you're capable of doing this and reaching out to these people. And you're going to start changing so many people's lives for the better because they're going to resonate with who you are now as a person. And that
Right.
draws people in. And so now you being you and showing up in your authentic masculine frame and showing people what it means to be intentional, what it means to be kind and considerate and to be a leader, people will pick that up off of you. And that is how change in our life happens. You go out in
Yeah.
the world, you have a sphere of, I always relate it to The Sims, right? You've got around 15 feet around you, this huge circle, and you're always
Right.
bumping up against things throughout your life. And you go to the grocery store and people, you have a choice. You can say hello, or you can bump their cart, get out of my way, and keep doing your thing. There's different ways of showing
Yes.
up in the world and
Yeah.
interacting with people. And so a kind smile, a good word, I talk about the Aldi quarter. If you shop at Aldi, you have to put a quarter in the cart in order to get it so you can use it. And there's always
Yes.
somebody on the way back that doesn't have an Aldi quarter. And
Oh,
they're looking frantically in their purse. They're playing around like they had a quarter in their pocket. Nobody has a quarter in their pocket. So stop playing around.
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole on this. I'm totally the guy that forgets the quarter and then
Uh,
tries to muscle all of the week's worth of groceries in a box. So I'm that jerk off at the checkout that's okay. I can't even like balance this. Can I set this down somewhere? Yeah,
oh, that's
that's a good
funny.
analogy though. Oh, it's
I
good.
love it. So
So,
let's get back to Crucible Fitness for a second. Can you share some strategies or practices that you teach in Crucible Fitness to help build mental resilience?
ooh, and I'm glad you even brought that up because my first comment was going to be that any transformation, physical transformation, let's say, it's absolutely more mental than it is physical. Your body is going to go where your mind tells it. So I think some strategies that I like when people look at it, I just say, okay, we need to break this down. You have this goal, this dream body. That's great. That's a purpose. That's a why. You're motivated to be a better parent or more energy with your kids, whatever. That's excellent. We start there with the purpose. But then it's okay, how do we implement that? I think where I've noticed the most common slip ups or working backwards would be people trying to do everything at once. I'm going to try to incorporate the diet all at once. I'm going to incorporate this 5 day a week training program all at once. I'm going to get all my supplementation in order all at once. And it doesn't have to be that way. Literally, I just tell people I go back to the block scheduling. I'm very big on that. Set a non-negotiable time on your clock. That's when you're going to move for 10 minutes outside of your normal daily routine. But when I'm starting people on training programs, I don't even put them through the hypertrophy week 1. I have them for the first 2 weeks set small habits that we can build on and compound later. So it's simply, like I said, 10 to 20 minutes a day. You just give me 10 to 20 minutes a day, give me 14 days, and let's just track what you're eating. So I get an idea of show them how we can track just to get a baseline, right? We're not going to throw it all in there at once. And at the end of the 2 weeks, what we notice is significantly weight loss already, just from the extra movement, right? The output, just that little bit of increase. The mental clarity is better. They accomplish something. It's not a very, ridiculous task to walk 10 minutes a day. A lot of people think they don't have time for it, but once you sit down with their schedule, you really do. And you just start to do these little things each day. And then we start building, okay, 10 minutes can turn into 2 10-minute sessions. And then depending on schedule, you can get that route. But all it does for me, the easiest way to explain it to anybody is take a step back, look at the final goal, but set the small little battle wins along the way for that ultimate victory. So that's where I sit everybody down and just say, it's not that we're overcomplicating it. We just need to move, and we need to portion size control just to start. Give me this 14-day win and I'll take you wherever you want to go. It's like really what I get into with people. So it's honestly just taking a look at the calendar and just making time to better yourself for a small amounts at a time. Blocking that, it's a non-negotiable. That's it. I don't even get into, hey, here's what a macro is. Hey, here's what the human physiology happens inside the body when we're eating carbs post-workout. I don't even get into all that. Comes with time. It's like anything. Like you first you crawl, then you walk. It's just a progression. So I like to help people understand it's a lot easier than you think, and we overthink it. All as a society, as a country, I think we overthink it, and people end up not doing anything. So showing that those small wins in the first 14 days is huge for people from the mental side. So now that we have that win, that mental win at day 14, now we can get into more intentional, okay, here's how we're going to break down your split. Let's look at your schedule. Here's some foods that we should be incorporating. And here's the data set for the macros we should be including for your diet, for your goals, and where you're at. And then we compound. So I like to get long-winded answer, Jason, to say, I like to get people a small win as quick as possible and to prove to themselves that they can do it and stick to something, whether it's, again, 10 days, 14 days, whatever it is. So that's,
No, it's the
yeah.
same philosophy I have, and I don't do a lot with fitness in terms of coaching people in that direction. But for people who are just starting on their personal development journey, it's very much a part of the journey if you're going to do that from my perspective. So people in my 21 day self-love challenge, it's one of the first videos that I create is habit stacking and getting into the place that
Mhm.
over time you create this self-trust by
Yep.
keeping the promises that you make to yourself. You get to this place where it's okay, I'll keep some water in the bedroom and I'm going to drink this water as soon as I wake up in the morning and I'm going to chug it. I'm going to get it down because I know I'm not as hydrated as I need to be. I already know this. You make the simple commitment of something that you can do consistently and then you
Yeah.
just build on that over time. And what happens is you get to this place where you begin to trust your own judgment and then this translates into your relationships and other aspects of your life.
Yes, it does. And I'm glad you went that route because that's what one of the core values that I've always, and Nathan shares this as well. That's why we even created Crucible Fitness together is how the physical and self, like taking care of yourself translates to all those facets of life, spiritual, mental, emotional. If you're in tune, you can be a better father, a better leader, a better businessman, whatever you want to be, a businesswoman. But it's amazing how just that little bit of movement and a little bit of discipline can just go such a long way. It stretches so far, like an inch can get you a mile. It's beautiful. It really is. It's something that just helping people and seeing people, that look on people's faces. And I know you've seen this with your clients when they have that self trust for the first time, could be 35 years, 40 years. That is the most fulfilling look to see on a human being's face to help, like, especially if you help them get there and just to know what that's going to do for them going forward. It's
Yeah.
a, it's so good.
There is a literal shift in the light in their eyes
Yes.
You can see it. There's like this glimmer of just excitement and happiness and hope.
Mm,
It's another thing that I love that you guys do, because I have the same philosophy in all the stuff that I'm doing. Is it's a no shame environment. And we see this in a lot of men's coaching where we actively shame everybody for all the things that they're not doing. And I'm going to yell at, scream at you and get you to this place. Like, you're not a child. I don't need to yell and scream at you, but I need you to acknowledge who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, and why you're doing it, and how you got
mm.
here. You have to author that story. You have to know who you are. When we talk about shaming, Papa Swolio put out a shirt, "Make Shaming Great Again." And so I bought it. I have it. Uh,
Not surprised.
you know, I have no problem wearing it. But when men talk about make shaming great again, what we're talking about is iron sharpens iron. It's holding you accountable. It's not, I'm going to completely emasculate you in front of everybody for absolutely no reason. It's, hey man, what you're doing right now is not working. It's not
Mm,
appropriate. You can do better. You have to learn a couple skills, and we're going to help get you there. But
love
you're
that.
not going to be coddled. We're not going to hold you by the hand. You have to start making the steps and be intentional with what you're doing. If you get me to the point where I'm that frustrated with you, then we have a very different conversation, because it means that this type of coaching program isn't for you. And maybe that is where other people will benefit. I think there's a benefit to those types of programs, of the people that are hyper alpha, because a lot of people have never done anything difficult in their lifetime. So this is their opportunity to do
True,
something physically difficult. I've done
true.
that. I know what that looks like. I know what that feels like. I don't need to go through that again. I've gone through that my entire life. What we
Sure.
need is to be able to understand who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. And for the people that
Mhm.
have never done anything in their lives, I can see the benefit with that. But my God, hit the gym, take care of yourself, make some
Beautiful.
good choices, trust your decision making, get to a place where you actually like yourself. It's why I talk so much about self love and how to get there and how to cultivate that. But when you start doing those things and start a walk of faith, whatever that looks like for you, but ultimately you'll transition into this place of feeling like you belong. And I think really that's the biggest issue with so many men, is they don't have a place where they belong. They don't have the friends that they used to have. Everybody's scattered all across the United States in different locations. They don't have the opportunity to see each other. For me, a lot of people that I know are like you, and we talk through a camera. So I have a
Right.
lot of people that I've created really close relationships with. I've never met. Obviously I've met you, but
Yeah.
there's other people that I've never met, but yet we talk all the time, and we have that support with one another. That's another aspect of this, is making sure you have good support.
I was going to build on that to your point of it is okay to do something hard every day. That's
Yeah,
challenging, right?
100%.
Like
You should.
it absolutely, and you should. And then I think that kind of conditions you for life adversities down the road. I'm not saying don't do something hard or push yourself. Cold shower, cold plunge, like you name it, but challenging yourself each day is a big piece. So I build on that. If we're going back to that client journey progression piece, that kind of comes in after that 14-day window there.
What are your long-term goals for Crucible Fitness? Where are you guys going? What are you creating with Crucible?
Community. So if I could put it into one word, we're looking to bring a community of men together to share exactly what we've just talked about for the last hour and be able to push one another, hold each other accountable, and grow. Because a lot of what I have done in the past, as far as intention and like goals, has all been financial based. So, what I love about Nathan and the guys at Crucible is like it's service based. We're people first, and that's not just a commercial. That's reality. That is truly what we're trying to build as a community, a brotherhood, right? That you can rely on, lean on each other to have those difficult conversations like you just brought up. Like, hey, if somebody's falling short, if I notice you're slipping, I'm saying something because I love and care about you. I'm not just going to let that go and avoid that awkward confrontation. So we're trying to create that comfortable environment. You could call it like safe space if you want. I don't like that term very much, but it's that community that you can trust and lean on, and people that like true brothers that aren't necessarily bloodline, but they are, right? They say the same values and everything. So we're trying to create that community where people are staying hungry with life, seeking joy, seeking fulfillment, taking care of themselves, and then being better leaders in life. If you can impact one, that person's going to impact hundreds, right? So the splash of that kind of movement is exactly what we're going for. So we're looking to build, if I could put it the simplest way, a community of men that are masculine. They're not the nice guys either, right? They're handling their stuff. being vulnerable when it's necessary, and not being afraid to share that testimony of trauma or past anything, like get it out there, help make a splash, make an impact. So what we're doing with that, like we have a smaller community now that we're doing with certain fitness challenges that's coming up next week. We're going to start the community small, but we're going to start doing different webinar type, almost self-paced, like your program a little bit. And I'm giving a little bit of like teaser here, but it's self-paced, but you still have a community to rely on. And then there's like the one-on-one side, more intensive, obviously be working directly with me, Nathan, throughout your coaching. But that's another long-winded answer for you for community, man. I think that and it's a common theme even amongst our conversation of the collaboration, right? That
Yeah.
brotherhood, community aspect. That's what we're going for. This isn't just another remote fitness coaching company. This is honestly sharpening iron with other pieces of iron and then building God's army, man. That's exactly what we're looking to do.
Yeah, and I love that the focus is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's very
Mhm.
much what I'm doing here, and I think that's where so many men struggle is with each one of those components and making sure that you're pouring into each of those cups each and every day and having a system for that. And if you're meandering through life and you don't have a system and you don't have any goals or aspirations or dreams or desires and you're not working towards anything, then
Mhm.
you have no purpose. So you will struggle, you will be fearful, you will be angry and resentful, you will be rageful. You have to give yourself that purpose. Nobody gives that to you. That's what I love about groups like this is because you guys are secure in your own purpose of where you're going, what you're doing and why you're doing it, but then you're also allowing men to come together in a shared space where they feel supported because you're actively interacting with them and it's not like you pay, it's a one and done and now all of a
Right.
sudden you have no community support whatsoever. You're actively in there, you're communicating with them, you're driving them, you're answering questions. And I think that's what makes you unique in the space. And I think that's a really wonderful thing that you got going on.
Appreciate that, brother.
One of the things I like getting from people are book recommendations that helped you through your personal development journey. I was wondering if you could share 3 recommendations with the audience.
I would. So my first, I brought it up earlier, so I spoiled it, but Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's one of my go-to books. This one here, Infinite Game, Simon Sinek. I'm not sure if you read that one. Beautiful. Basically, I love the concept of that book because if you think of life on a continuum or an infinity symbol, there's never just A to B, right? We're always constantly moving. So it's a lot of like mindset, mental strategies there. And then in the intention imperative, Mark Sanborn.
Hmm. What's that one about?
So this is it takes you through it's a lot of intentional leadership based. So there's a lot of just different, disciplines and how you work with different groups of people, like basically just different approaches and how you can handle certain situations. So basically like the world as it is, how can you make different personalities and mentalities work with you? So it helps you understand again, getting to know yourself and really just making you a successful leader overall. So it can translate into anything. That's what's interesting. Like we're leading stuff all the time, whether we don't have that title that I talked about earlier or not. So that's why I love books like that. But honestly, my favorite book out of those 3 is the first one I mentioned, Atomic Habits. I think that it goes along with what we've been saying here. Those small little wins, those small disciplines compound over time and just it leads to great things and great change. So those are my 3. You
I
put me on
love
the
it.
spot. I wasn't even ready for that.
I think it's important because you're in the space and you're constantly doing the work. So I like that. And then last question. I was watching this TikTok this morning at 4 in the morning because that's when I got up. And it was a series of questions that you can ask people to really get to know them or to try and gauge where they're at. And so
Mm,
my parting question to you is if we were to meet up in a year, what would we be celebrating?
I love this question.
Yeah, it hit me so hard when I saw that. I'm just like that to I love it. I think it's a really great way to get people thinking and to pull some extra information out of them, but also to help them be guided through the process of where am I going? What am I doing? What do I want? What
And
will
for
there
a
be
minute,
to celebrate?
to be honest, Jason, I didn't have a quick answer for that one because I haven't thought about a year from now. But what came to my mind, if we're having a conversation, what I would like to share with you is just the testimonials of people that we've impacted in a year. Not bringing up revenue, success from that standpoint, nothing like that. Obviously, growth would be celebrated, the lives that we changed along the way, like
Yeah.
hearing those stories. That's again, that's broad, but I'm trying to keep that humble mindset throughout this whole thing, no matter how much success it has, it doesn't have, whatever. I want to make sure that it's people based. And I know you're that way as well. So I think it'd be something cool, like really for us to share. I think that's something even successful entrepreneurs, if we could share how many people we serve, not bottom line numbers, instead of looking at people successes rather than the revenue base, that's where I would see us. And I honestly, I wholeheartedly would say that's where our conversation would go anyway, knowing you, what you stand for. What was your answer to that question? Or what would you say?
What's so interesting is my life has changed significantly over 2 years. So it's always cool to see just how far you can come in a year, what you can accomplish in 365 days. And I look at the past year and what I've been able to do. The podcast, again, I don't like quoting statistics, but we just hit over 75,000 downloads within a 1 year period. And so that feels good. And again, I didn't have a metric for that until I started talking to other people that were podcasting, and they're like, "No, that's actually really good because we're not there yet and we've been doing this a little bit longer than you have." And it's okay. Thank you. That's a great frame of reference. So I'm just excited to, like you, reach as many people as I can and get them to love themselves enough
Yes.
that enough that they're willing to say things like, "No, that's not for me." That's my goal. My tagline is helping you heal the relationship you have with yourself. And the reason for that is when you heal the relationship with yourself, you begin to trust yourself. You then begin to trust other people to be who they are as well without trying to fix or change them. And I think that's a struggle that so many people have is I need you to be different in order for me to like you, in order for me to be with you, in order for me to fully experience you, but ultimately be comfortable with myself. I have to
Mm,
change you in what I need you to be. And the reality is you need to be you so that you can enjoy people as they are and see the beauty in that and recognize that it's not your job to fix or change people. And if people aren't showing up for you in the way that you would desire them to, then that's just not your person. Those aren't your people. That's actually a no for you. And
love
it's
it.
so hard because we don't want the rejection. We don't want the abandonment. I've imprinted on you. I've made you my person. You have to do all these things for me and be all the and meet my needs and all this other stuff. It's no, that's actually your job. And so many people get so frustrated with that aspect of the healing journey. They're like, I can't even hear that. I can't handle that. But that's the goal, to get you to love yourself so much. And then for me to get those testimonials a year from now of the lives that we've changed. It's happening more and more on Facebook. People are dropping reviews. They're also just dropping general comments that I haven't been able to collect them all because there's been so many, and I don't have a virtual assistant or anything like that. But it's been really cool to see just that type of impact. If you go to my Instagram and you go to highlights, you can read some of the things that people have been writing, and it's just that reminder that you know what, this is changing people's lives. It is having an impact, and
Absolutely.
I do need to keep going. So
And I was going to say, when maybe a day you don't feel like it, or a day that you're letting the enemy thoughts in your mind, oh, I'm not meant to do this, read those.
well, that's every day because of sales. It's
I'll tell you what, it's more often than a lot of people are willing to admit
like
online. That's what
sales are not where they're supposed to be or where I
yeah,
would like for them to be, and I don't even know what to do about that. I've hit a wall, and you create the video sales letters and you do all the things, and it's don't know how to gain
exactly.
the traction on that. Yeah. And
Well,
it's
listen,
tax season, so I think that's part of the issue, but
that's very true. I never even I didn't actually think about that. Just closed 4 days
yeah.
ago, so could be
What happened for me last year is July was the month that everything picked up. So
July. Makes
So I'm
sense.
crossing my fingers. It doesn't make sense actually, because everybody
It
it's
doesn't.
summer, everybody's out and about, they're living their lives, they're living lake life, they're doing all the things, and it's like, why are you buying things in July? Because I would expect that to be in like January to March would be like a good purchase season, and then
Yeah,
obviously tax season not so much because we got to pay some taxes and
yeah. No, I guess so. I just imagine this is my previous life, but people drinking throughout the day on the boats, whatever, and then they're sitting on the couch winding down. They see your ad, your pretty face come up on an ad, or like a video. It's oh, I'll buy this program. This sounds great. I don't know.
yeah, they're half schmammered and they're like, oh, it's
Yeah, yeah,
$67. Okay.
yeah. Exactly, man. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like no one. So
It's
Yeah.
funny you say that because I've had people contact me like a year later saying, "I don't remember buying this, but I bought it and now I can't log into it." And it's okay, then you remember buying it. So then
Right.
I send them their login and then they go through it again.
Yeah.
It's funny.
That could be
Yeah.
something, but
Maybe there's something there. I don't know.
I don't know.
Donnie, thanks for being here, man. I really appreciate you and spending your time with us and telling us all about your life, your goals, your dreams, your aspirations, and Crucible Fitness.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me. Grateful for our friendship too, man. Grateful
Me
to meet
too,
you.
man.